What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Yusof Reacts. Today, we're diving into the movie that started it all, the 2001 classic that launched a multi-billion-dollar franchise, The Fast and the Furious. Buckle up, because we're going to break down all the action, the characters, and the culture that made this film such a hit. Let's go! The Fast and the Furious hit theaters in 2001 and instantly captured our hearts. With the roar of engines and the thrill of illegal street racing. Directed by Rob Cohen, this movie wasn't just about fast cars. It was about a lifestyle. It introduced us to a new subculture of racing, camaraderie, and, of course, family. Meet BrianOConner, played by Paul Walker. Brian's a cop who's sent undercover to infiltrate the street racing scene in Los Angeles. His mission? To find out who's been pulling off some high-speed heists involving a lot of DVD players. Yeah, remember, this was 2001. DVD players were a big deal back then. And then, of course, we meet Dominic Toretto, portrayed by Vin Diesel. Dom is the undisputed king of the streets, a racer with a reputation and a family code. Brian's task becomes more complicated as he gets closer to Dom and the crew, including Letty, Mia, and Jesse. He finds himself torn between his duty as a cop and his growing loyalty to Dom's family. But let's talk about what really made this movie a fan favorite: the cars and the races. From that iconic orange Toyota Supra to Dom's legendary black Dodge Charger. The Fast and the Furious gave us some of the coolest car sequences ever. Remember the first race scene where Brian uses nose and nearly wrecks his car trying to beat Dom? That moment was pure adrenaline. And let's not forget the romantic subplot. Brian falls for Dom's sister, Mia, played by Jordana Brewster. This relationship adds another layer of tension, as Brian knows he's deceiving everyone, but his feelings for Mia are very real. As Brian gets deeper into Dom's world, he realizes the stakes are much higher than just street racing. Dom and his crew are behind those high-speed heists, and things escalate quickly, leading to a dramatic showdown involving a semi-truck and some seriously daring stunts. One of the movie's pivotal moments is when Brian reveals he's a cop to save Vince, one of Dom's crew members. That's when everything changes. The look on Dom's face says it all: betrayal, shock, and anger. It's a powerful moment that sets up the rest of the franchise. Despite everything, Brian lets Dom go at the end of the film, choosing loyalty to his new friend over his duty as a cop. And who could forget that final drag race between Brian and Dom? It's not just about speed. It's about respect. When Dom's Charger goes airborne, it becomes an unforgettable symbol of the risks these characters are willing to take for freedom and family. The Fast and the Furious is more than just a movie about fast cars. The Fast and the Furious is more than just a movie about fast cars. It's about trust, loyalty, and finding your own family even if it's in the most unexpected places. This film laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most beloved action franchises of all time. Who knew that what started with street racing in LA would lead to international espionage, heists, and saving the world? Los Angeles police officer BrianOConner must decide where his loyalty really lies when he becomes enamored with the street racing world he has been sent undercover to end it. Los Angeles street racer Dominic Toretto falls under the suspicion of the LAPD. As a string of high-speed electronics truck robberies rocks the area, BrianOConner, an officer of the LAPD, joins the ranks of Toretto's highly skilled racing crew undercover to convict Toretto. However, O'Connor finds himself both enamored with this new world and in love with Toretto's sister, Mia. As a rival racing crew gains strength, O'Connor must decide where his loyalty really lies. In the opening scene, a helmeted racer leads a gang of stunt drivers, driving three black Honda Civic Coupes who hijack a shipment of electronics from a moving truck. BrianOConner Brian Walker is an undercover police officer, driving supercharged cars and trying to infiltrate Dominic Toretto's Vin Diesel gang, who are suspects in the robberies. He first visits Dominic's cafe, where he makes conversation with Dominic's younger sister, Mia Jordana Brewster. and tries to make inroads with the gang by selling performance equipment. Vince Matt Schultz is jealous, and a fight breaks out. His girlfriend Letty Michelle Rodriguez begs Dom to break it up, who does so, threatening to get Brian fired. That night, racers gather for street racing. Brian meets Hector Noel Guglielmi, and they wait for Dom. Brian offers his car in a bet, and Dom's tech Jesse Chad Lineberg checks his car out. The spectators line the streets, lighting the way. Brian and Dom race with Johnny Tran, Rick Yoon, and Edwin Yarul. Dom wins, showing Brian's superior driving and timing. The racers pick up a police alert on the scanner, and everyone flees. Dom parks his car and flees on foot, and Brian helps him escape. Dom has researched Brian getting his cover story, but as they chat, they are surrounded by Uzi-wielding Chinese bikers, who escort them to an empty lot. The leader of this gang, Johnny Tran, admires Brian's car and refers to a race in the desert next month. He and his goons shoot up Brian's car, which explodes from the nose nitrous oxide on board. Back at Dom's house, a party is in progress. Dom yells at his gang, saying Brian was the only one to help him. Vince is upset that Brian is back, and Mia breaks up with him. The next day, Brian arrives at a police safe house where his boss, CTP Tanner Ted Levine, greets Brian. Truckers are getting nervous about the robberies, and the FBI are now involved. They keep hearing about modified Honda Civics in the robberies. Later that day, Brian brings Dom a wrecked Toyota Supra with a powerful engine, and starts working in Dom's garage. Vince continues to be angry with Dom's friendship with Brian, and Mia teases him. The next day, Hector buys parts for Honda Civics from Brian, and Brian gets suspicious. He breaks into Hector's garage, but Vince and Dom have followed him. Brian convinces them he's spying on the competition for Race Wars next month. Vince is suspicious, but Dom thinks it's a good idea, and they break into Tran's garage. Brian spots possible stolen goods. Tran and his goons arrive, and Dom, Brian and Vince watch as they torture local fence Ted Bo Holden about stolen engines. Brian tells the FBI, but wants to resist moving in on Tran until they have more evidence. His boss thinks he's too soft on Toretto. That Brian is going native. The next day, Dom takes Brian into confidence and shows off his supercharged 1970 Dodge Charger, one he never drives. Dom says it has too much power. Over dinner, Brian and Mia talk about Dom, then Mia shows off her driving skills. At the same time, another robbery is in progress, and Brian gets a call from his boss that they are moving in on Tran in the morning. The raid goes off with Brian wearing a hood to avoid recognition. But Tran's gang gets out for lack of evidence the suspicious goods were purchased. CTP Tanner cautions Brian about falling for Mia, and tells him Dominic is the next suspect. The next day, Brian and Dom take the rebuilt Supra for a spin and smoke a Ferrari. Over lunch, Brian asks to get in on Dom's next job, but Dom wants to see how Brian does at Race Wars first. In the middle of the desert, Race Wars begins. Letty wins, but Jesse loses his car to Tran and refuses to pay. Tran accuses Dom of being an informer as a result of the police raid on his place the day before, and a fight breaks out. That night, Mia is upset with Dom, who is obviously going on another robbery, revealing that Dom and his gang really are the hijackers that Brian is trying to nail all along. Brian confesses that he's a cop, and asks Mia to help him warn Dom about the truckers arming themselves and the FBI operations. Brian calls for a trace of Dom's cell phone. Letty is nervous about the upcoming job, but they go ahead with it. At the climax, Dom and his gang don their masks and cars and set out for another hijacking job. The robbery begins to go wrong when Vince jumps on the truck, but is shot at by the trucker. Letty crashes her car, and Leon Johnny Strong rescues her. Brian arrives on the scene and risks his life to save Vince as the trucker reloads his shotgun. Dom arrives and hears Brian calling for a medical helicopter, identifying himself as a cop. Dom is stunned, but Vince is the first priority. After Vince is stabilized, Dom storms off with Mia following. Back at Dom's house, Brain confronts Dom. Jesse returns, and Tran shoots him in a drive-by. Brian gives chase, and Dom gets in the Charger to pursue as well. Dom stops in front of one of the motorcycles, sending the goon into a field, and Brian shoots Tran. Brian sees Dom fleeing, and pursues in the Supra. They race, and Dom's car destroys itself from the massive torque in the motor. They finish the race, but Dom hits a truck pulling out from a side street. The Charger is wrecked, and Dom is injured. As the police sirens are heard in the distance, Brian gives Dom his car and Dom escapes. Whether you love it for the cars, the action, or the iconic one-liner scene, Live My Life a Quarter Mile at a Time. This movie is a cultural touchstone that has stood the test of time. And don't even get me started on how it redefined car culture for a whole new generation. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Fast and the Furious, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more movie breakdowns, reviews, and all things cinema. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite scene from this movie. Are you Team Brian or Team Dom? Let's chat about it below.
Thank you.